We can't wait.
We can't wait.
We can't wait.
We can't wait another 10 years
to get the healthcare we need.
We can't wait another 10 years
to get more funding for our schools.
We can't wait another 10 years to get elected officials who see us and value us.
Every 10 years, everyone in the U.S. is counted by filling out the census.
When we count our people, it's not just about who we are.
It's about where we are and what we need.
The census informs how $1.5 trillion.
Yes, $1 trillion
is spent on our schools and hospitals and healthcare and roads and public safety and many other services.
It also determines how many people represent us in government.
It's simple.
When we're counted in the census, our communities get resources and representation.
And when we're not counted, they don't.
Every decade, the same groups of people are undercounted by the census.
Communities of color,
LGBTQ people,
immigrants and refugees,
people with disabilities,
people with low income, and those experiencing homelessness.
When these communities are undercounted,
they don't get the healthcare,
education,
and representation in the government that they deserve.
For 10 years.
At this critical juncture in our nation's history,
in the midst of a global pandemic,
we can't wait another 10 years
to get vital resources and representation.
We need to be counted now.
There is a lot of fear and confusion around the census, and for good reason.
Millions of dollars are spent on spreading misinformation
to keep certain communities from being counted.
So what are the facts? Your personal information is confidential and by law cannot be used by the government.
If you have been in the country since April 1st of 2020, you should be counted.
Whether you're a citizen or not.
To be clear, there is no citizenship question on the census.
Every household submits one census.
It's fast, it's easy. You don't even have to leave your house.
You can fill out the census form that arrived in the mail,
complete it online,
or do it by phone.
Go to becountednow.com for more information.
Don't wait.
Fill out the census today.
And be counted.
Be counted.
Be counted.
Be counted.
Hi everyone, my name is Yesenia Hernandez. I am the Community Outreach Coordinator for the 2020 Census at Community Action Partnership of Orange County, aka CAPOC.
Hi, I'm Diana. I'm the Regional Census Campaign Manager for NALEO Educational Fund here in Orange County.
And I wanted to welcome you to the first day of our OC Census Week of Action. Today, this is our OC Census Town Hall, where we will be discussing the 2020 census, why it is crucial for our communities to get counted, how to respond to the questionnaire, the safety and confidentiality of the census, and the impact of COVID-19 on census operations. We have allocated time at the end for Q&A, so feel free to type any questions you have in the comments section on this live stream. As I said in the beginning, today is day one of our OC Census Week of Action. We still have 4 more days to go. For the remainder of the week, from Tuesday, July 28th to Friday, July 31st, we will be phone banking countywide and remotely from the comfort of our homes from 2:30 to 5 p.m. via Zoom. You still have time to sign up and volunteer, to volunteer. So you can register at bit.ly/OCCounts. And why is this big push, you ask? Well, non-response follow-up is around the corner. This means census takers will soon be knocking on doors that have not responded to the 2020 census. So we are pushing for our community to respond now.
All of these efforts are currently being supported by these wonderful organizations like the LGBTQ Center, CARE LA, Altamed, the Green Foundation, the Coalition of OC Community Health Centers, and Pretend City. All these efforts are also supported by Charitable Ventures. Charitable Ventures is the state-designated administrative community-based organization that focuses on 2020 census outreach here in Orange County. They're partnering with 80 local community-based organizations to do outreach and to count people in hard-to-count communities to make sure that everyone receives their fair share and accurate count. Through facilitation of the OC Census Community Table, in which 450 organizations are taking part, They're helping to coordinate messaging around the census and promoting census education. So a big thank you to Charitable Ventures. And the reason why we're doing this is because our current response rates show that Orange County is at a 71, or the most updated response rates are actually 71%, which is absolutely wonderful, as it's higher than the national average of 62.6 and the California average of 63.8. But we still have regions, these pockets of neighborhoods across Orange County that have very low response rates. So we're hoping that with this town hall and with the phone banking efforts we have this week, that we're able to raise these response rates in the county.
Before we introduce our panelists today, we do have a special message from our U.S. Representative Katie Porter. So there you go.
This is Congresswoman Katie Porter. I'm so excited to be here today to help kick off the Orange County Census Week of Action. I want to start by thanking all of the fantastic organizations that have been dedicated to the census efforts here in Orange County. A special thanks to Charitable Ventures, Community Action Partnership of Orange County, and NALEO Educational Fund for organizing this town hall today. By making sure everyone is counted, you're helping to preserve one of our nation's civic treasures, and you're helping our community get the resources we need. 1 year ago, my office convened a group of 40 community leaders to start planning how we could work together to achieve a complete count in Orange County. Since then, I've been hard at work sharing information, conducting oversight of the Census Bureau, and reminding folks to do their part by filling out their census. I was even able to convince my daughter, Betsy, to join me for a video of us filling out our family's census online and reminding people how easy the process is. I'm proud of the work we have done here in Orange County. Our self-response rate is at 70.5%, and the 45th Congressional District is nearing 73.5%, one of the highest in California. But we still have a lot of work to do to achieve a complete count. And as a parent, educator, and member of Congress, I know how important this work is. Not only does a complete count get our families the representation we deserve, it also helps the government and businesses decide how much and where to invest in schools, services, roads, hospitals, and more. There's $800 billion in federal funds at stake. And as the pandemic has made clear, it is critical that these funds are allocated correctly. A complete count means more resources, more medical expertise, and more recovery funds in a time of need. The census is a once-in-a-decade experience and cannot be redone. We have got to get this right. The U.S. Census Bureau and our state and local partners have done a great job so far, helping Orange County families respond to the census easily and safely. For the first time this year, the census is available online, not just by phone and mail. It is critical that we stay physically distant these days. Filling out the census by phone or online are convenient ways to limit person-to-person contact. Starting on August 1st, enumerators will begin visiting homes that have not yet completed their census. And while the Census Bureau has implemented strong safety measures for their employees, responding by phone or internet is the best way to keep our community safe. I am so proud of the work you're doing for Orange County. I will continue to do my part and urge members of our community to respond to the census so that Orange County gets the resources and representation we need. I look forward to seeing our self-response numbers climb as the Orange County Census Week of Action continues. Thank you again.
Thank you, Katie Porter. She also wanted to add one final statement today. So Katie Porter says, the census is one of our country's shared civic treasures, yet President Trump continues to try to politicize it. It's unacceptable. I want to remind everyone in Orange County that their responses are safe and confidential. It's critical that we have a complete count. And now I'll give it to Darlene. This side.
Hi, everyone. Next, we have, okay. So we are going to introduce our panel next. Yesenia?
Yes, so let me introduce our panelists. So today we have Saul Viramontes, Special Project Manager at the County of Orange, as well as Marianne Fu, Executive Director of Orange County Asian and Pacific Islander Community Alliance, OCAPICA, Bao Nguyen, Partnership Specialist Team Lead for Orange County at the U.S. Census Bureau, and last but not least, Nancy Mejia, Chief Program Officer at Latino Health Access. And I'll send it back to Darlene.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Yesenia. So we're going to start our town hall with a question for Mary, or questions for Mary Ann from OCAPICA. Mary Ann, can you tell us why the census, or what is the census, and why is it important to you?
You know, the census, as you saw in that great commercial, Be Counted, it really talks about that the census happens every 10 years, and it provides everything. Those numbers decide how much over $1 trillion from federal funds go to each state and into the counties, into your cities, anywhere from, you know, housing assistance, Medi-Cal here in California, Head Start, it funds free and reduced meals at schools, everything, highway planning, how your neighborhood is planned. Not only is it federal funds for resources, but researchers, city planners, so many other people use that data on a daily basis to plan out how neighborhoods are developed, the number of parks, the number of schools, what we should be doing. And so that's why this census data is so valuable, and it's vital, you know, for our state, for our county, and for our cities.
Awesome. Can you tell us how the current pandemic, how COVID-19 has shown us why the census is now more important than ever?
You know, COVID-19, this pandemic, and any healthcare need or any need, it really shows why census data is so important. Census data, we're utilizing the 2010 census and for the data, and you know, every year the census also utilizes birth and death records to help update that data and show us what the latest is. We're able to use that to show overcrowded housing and where there's a large concentration of people. We're able to look at ethnicity, at language, and that helps us plan, for example, for COVID-19. We know in Orange County right now, Anaheim and Santa Ana have really high rates of positive COVID cases, but we're also able to see the number of places that are overcrowded. So we know community members can't isolate or can't, you know, quarantine. So it's very difficult. So it really helps us in planning, helps us to plan how much outreach and education we need to do about COVID. It'll help us once we have a vaccine, know where to go and, you know, what areas we really need to target. So it's very, very important. This census data helps us on any pandemic, on any health need, helps us to think about the number of healthcare providers needed, what hospitals are needed, to plan for the future. And so this is why it's so crucial that we have an accurate count, because without an accurate count, you know, some people have told me, well, I'm really afraid to put the actual number who live in our household. I don't want to get in trouble. And what I've told them is if we don't put that accurate count, not only will you not get the appropriate resources for your neighborhoods, but when something like COVID-19 occurs, we're not going to know the amount of healthcare needs we have. We're not going to know how we can help to isolate people who are positive from other family members or from neighbors. And so this census data is vital. It counts for everything, for all planning, for everything. And that's why we are seeing right now during COVID-19 how important that data is.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Marianne. Can you tell us more about OCAPICA's efforts to encourage residents across Orange County?
So OCAPICA and its numerous partners, we're all a part of the administrative CBO, and there's, you know, hundreds and hundreds of partners. I think there's over 1,000 right now. And we are all reaching, especially the hard to count. And our focus right now are those areas that have not responded or undercounted. There's a lot of people who are living in motels or living in overcrowded housing, like I talked about. A lot of people who just don't know, and they don't know how important it is, or they're afraid to fill this out. And so by educating and talking to everyone, that this census, it counts for everything, how your roads are planned, neighborhoods. But if we don't fill it out, we're not going to get the resources that we need here in Orange County. And that's why everyone sees this as so important and vital to everyone's well-being. So we're reaching out in language, in all different languages. We're going with ethnic media. We're going, reaching out through social media. We're calling people out. We're reaching out to schools. And a number of the partners, every single day are doing this through food distribution, food lines, at grocery stores, at essential services. So we really need your help. We need every single person who's watching and everybody who's involved. If you care about your communities and your neighborhoods, get your neighbors to fill out the census and to fill it out accurately. And just like what the commercial said, and a number of other speakers are going to say, this is confidential. But without it, we could lose so many valuable resources that we need here in Orange County.
Thank you so much, Marianne, again, for joining us at today's Census Town Hall, and we look forward to hearing you later in the Q&A portion of this.
Thank you.
Okay, and next up, now Nancy, what information will be on the census and how is it safe and confidential? If you can answer those questions.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So there are several questions on the census. There are 9 basic questions for the primary, let's say, household or person filling it out. And they will ask questions that are demographic. So they will ask how many people are living in that address. They also ask what type of housing. Is it an apartment? Is it a house? Then they will also ask name, first and last name for each person, date of birth, sex, and ethnicity, race questions. So these are all demographic, very basic questions.
Nancy, if you can explain a little bit about what questions will they not be asking on the census?
That's a very good question. I know there's been a lot of fear around why not to fill out the census, and so they will definitely. There are not questions around immigration status. They do not ask if you are a citizen, a resident, or undocumented. They don't ask for a social security number. They don't ask for bank information. They don't ask about anything about your housing, your rental, or lease agreement. So like I said earlier, these are purely sort of demographic, and it's to take account.
Okay, and can you explain how exactly the census is safe and confidential?
Yes, so there's also been a lot of fear, I think, in the community around how is my information going to be used. Marianne just touched on a little bit of this. So there's actually federal laws in place that protect our confidentiality and how our information is used for the census. So Title 13 of the U.S. Code, this is sort of our federal laws, do tell the Census Bureau how they have to take care of everything they collect. So private information is never published. It's against the law to disclose or publish any of the information collected. Like I said before, this is purely for a statistical count. So Title 13 also tells the Census Bureau that they cannot share any of the information, especially any personal information, with other branches of the government. And here's a slide that you can follow along with. So none of that, and Census Bureau employees are sworn in, right? They have to take an oath that says that they will maintain the confidentiality. Every survey, every questionnaire that they help somebody fill out, they cannot share any of that information. And if they violate that, there's up to a $250,000 fine and 5 years in prison. So there are federal laws in place that tell the Census Bureau how to manage this and how not to use the information and disclose it. So they also, for instance, can't disclose it to your landlord, right? They can't disclose it to other family members and things like that. They cannot disclose it to other branches of the government like ICE either.
Thanks for being so thorough. And then finally, what has Latino Health Access, what has been your role to encourage residents to respond?
So we have been one of the partners or grantees, both from the county and charitable ventures. And we have, our model is go where people are. So we set out to encourage hard to count populations in Central Santa Ana and also South County to fill out the census. So a lot of education around why it's important, how to fill it out. Before the pandemic, before the shelter in place, we were able to do about 4,000 door-to-door outreach contacts. And we started as an organization, we take very seriously who we serve, and we have a database of folks that already trust us as an organization, and we know that they're in the hard to count sort of population. So we made sure that we either visited them or gave them a phone call. So after the pandemic, we all had to get very creative, and we've shifted to phone banking. And so we've reached over 11,000 people through our phone banking efforts, and also another 5,000 through virtual presentations, also in-person presentations, but also an infomobile. So because of the social distancing, we knew we couldn't knock on doors anymore. And so we equipped our van with sort of this loudspeaker system where we would go to hard to count areas and engage people. We would see them through their window or on their porches or at the corner store and encourage people to fill out the census and hand them through socially distanced methods information. And whatever little activities we do have, sort of as a COVID response, we have our food bank every week, and we have been distributing census swag, so bags, for instance, flyers to over 1,000 people every week through our food bank efforts. And now we're doing this community-driven COVID response where we have mobile clinics and we're handing out PPE kits. So we're also making sure to promote the census through those efforts.
Okay, awesome. You guys are doing so much. The infomobile are great. Okay, well, thanks, Nancy. Well, next up, we'll take it back to Darlene.
Hey, everyone. So today we have a special guest with us. We have with us Representative Lou Correa. Representative Correa, are you online? Sure. Go on to speak with Bao, who is our lead specialist from the U.S. Census Bureau here in Orange County. Hi, Bao. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you, Darlene, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. So I have a couple of questions for you today. And so I would like to know more about the impact that COVID-19 is having on census operations. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. COVID has had such a big impact on all of our families at a very basic level. So as folks are struggling to cope and deal with the health crisis that we're currently in, that takes time away from people thinking about the census. So before I talk about some of the changes that the U.S. Census Bureau has done, I want to thank all of you for tuning in and all of our partners, especially the County of Orange and Charitable Ventures and NALEO and Capital C, and so many of you influencers that are out there sharing about the census and encouraging everybody. So during this time, we're in it together. We want to support each other. And during that time, I also want to share that, we now have an opportunity to respond online and by phone, in addition to the paper questionnaire. And that has been extended to the end of October. So initially the deadline was July 31st. It's now October 31st. So it's not too late. We're heading into the final lap. So this is the time where we should do everything we can to make sure that this is the best census ever in Orange County. So in addition to that, the COVID pandemic has also delayed our enumeration efforts for non-response follow-up. So that will now begin August 11th. So those are the major changes due to COVID.
Thank you so much, Belle. Can you tell us more about the operations that are coming up, about on-response follow-up and census takers and how we can identify census takers in the community?
Sure, absolutely. So starting August 11th, right now, actually, we are currently, our operations side are training folks to go door to door, and certainly they will wear protective, personal protective equipment, and they will maintain distance in engaging any of the members of the public. And so when they do knock on your door, please open the door. We'll maintain distance. We'll make sure that we protect ourselves. So check out this slide here. I'll show you my ID badge, and it looks like this. So this is what identifies us. There's this chip right here. There's the seal from the Department of Commerce, and it says census, and there's a picture as well. And you can always, talk through the window as well if you don't feel comfortable. As long as, we can hear you and we can communicate with you, that's fine. I also want to reiterate what some of the other speakers have said, especially Nancy Mejia from Latino Health Access. Each of us has sworn a lifetime oath. So our oath is for life, and we cannot reveal anyone's personally identifiable information. If we do, it is a $250,000 fine and 5 years in prison. So we take that oath for life. And the Census Bureau will not share the information with anybody. So we won't share it with other government agencies. We won't share your personally identifiable information with anybody. So I want to just emphasize that. We're here together as a community. We trust the partners that have provided so many services to Orange County, and our teachers and our schools, and so many of the folks understand how important this is, and we hope that you will join with everyone in the community to respond at this time.
Thank you so much, Belle. One last question for you. So what has the Census Bureau done to make sure that all Orange County residents are counted?
The Census Bureau has actually relied on so many of you, like NALEO. Due to your leadership, Darlene, you've been giving out a lot of information for the community organizations, OCAPICA, Latino Health Access. So again, the organizations that have been partners with us include cities and complete count committees, religious organizations, schools, and so many others. So this is an all community effort, and we have been providing support through my team of 20 partnership specialists. So I want to really highlight the work that my team has done. We speak so many different languages, from Spanish to Farsi to Mandarin and Vietnamese and Korean and Japanese. I'm sure I'm leaving out some languages. So we've engaged pretty much everybody that's interested in working with us, and we still want to continue that partnership all the way through to the end of October. So, if you'd like to contact me, please do. You can email me at bao.win@2020census.gov, and we can continue the partnership and make sure that everyone is counted, that we don't leave anyone uncounted in Orange County.
Thank you so much, Belle. Next, we'll have Yesenia.
Awesome. Thank you, Belle, for all that information, for giving out your email even. So next up, we're speaking to Saul. So Saul, how can people respond to the 2020 census?
So for the first time ever in the 2020 census, we can respond 3 different ways, which would be mail, those postcards that you're getting in the mail. There should have been a packet by now. But even easier than that, you could go online to my2020census.gov or call by phone, with the English one being 844-330-2020. And I think we have the other languages online too. If we could please share that screen. I always like to promote this to members of the community to make sure that they know that if, in case they have any technology barriers or anything else, they can always call online and speak to someone in person.
And where can people call in case they need to contact somebody if they have any questions specifically?
Of course. So I would start off with the U.S. Census Bureau, just because they can also help you with your questionnaire if you have not completed it. If you're not ready to talk to the Census Bureau, you could always start with a trusted location, such as one of these great nonprofits that are on the phone with us. But I also recommend that you call your local school for a little more information. They can connect you with a community partner who can help. And lastly, your city hall or your local library should be prepared to answer any of your questions, especially in Orange County, because we've all been working really hard to make sure everybody understands the census, its purpose, and how important it is to get a complete count.
Okay, awesome. Well, that kind of leads into my next question. What has the county been doing to make sure that we do get a complete count in Orange County?
Yeah, so lots of stuff. At the end of the day, we ourselves, along with a lot of other great organizations, were tasked with reaching out to every single hard-to-count resident and our vulnerable populations. Those are non-English speakers. Those are individuals who have some kind of challenge. There's also seniors, young children, people who are historically missed on the census. So just make sure that the education and the public awareness was there. We're leading a campaign to make sure everybody knows the correct facts about the census and try to separate myths from the truth, how easy it is to complete. It's literally 10 questions and 10 minutes. I believe after you complete for your head of the household, it just gets simpler and simpler. One of the things which I'll get to in a minute was actually mobile questionnaire assistance. But before I move on, just like Val said and Val's team, lots of partner engagement, working with a lot of cities, lots of nonprofits, and just everybody who's willing to help champion the census. And it's surprising to know how many partners are willing to work for this great effort. And that's because everybody knows how important it is for our schools, our cities, our hospitals, housing vouchers, everything our community needs. And lastly, as a county, we also prioritize supporting our partners. So anybody who wanted to or has been doing work with the census here in the county, we've tried to support them in some way, shape, or form. And lastly, the census has been going on for almost or more than 4 months now. So one thing we're prioritizing at this moment is action. So you might see your county employees and our friends wearing these badges. We are, as Val mentioned, being COVID safe. Everybody wear the face mask. We are giving away hand sanitizers, and we're finding the community where they are and encouraging to respond to the census with us, which we've been doing a lot of. And lastly, you can all help by telling your family and friends, a quick post on social media, or anything that lets your family also supporting the census.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Saul. So now we'll head into our Q&A section.
Awesome. Thank you so much to all the panelists for all of that wonderful information. Next, we have a Q&A portion. So if you're watching this live, you can drop a question in the comment section and we'll read it live so you can get an answer. And we'll start with the first question. So if a household forgot to include someone on their form, what should they do? And to answer that, I guess anyone on the panel, on our panel can answer this question.
Hi, I think everyone here can answer that question. It's pretty simple. Go ahead and call 844-330-2020. That's a toll-free number. It's 844-330-2020.
Okay, awesome. And then the next question, if a household forgot to include someone on their form, what should they do? So who can answer that?
That's the number they should call that just came up on the screen. If they forgot anybody, please call that number, 844-330-2020.
And just to reiterate, so even if you filled it out, you can fill it out again, is what we're saying?
Well, you should call that number so that we can take note of the questionnaire that's been submitted.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you don't, so, you know, I imagine some folks may have lost their special code that came in the mail, and you don't need that code. So once you get to that screen that asks for the code, just click that you don't have it and it'll bypass that screen. So you don't need that code that you may have thrown away already to respond to the census.
Okay, thanks for clearing it up.
And I believe we have a special guest that just jumped on. U.S. Representative Lou Correa, are you with us now? Can you hear us? I think you might have your microphone on mute. We'll give it a couple of seconds. You know, it's hard to, oh no. Okay.
Technology.
Technical difficulties, it's okay. As soon as he can connect with his camera and microphone, we'll definitely jump him on because I know he has some really important messages to share with all of us.
Can I ask just related to the previous question? Because what we're seeing is we have multiple families sometimes living in one address or folks renting. And so the head of household or the person that gets the mail sometimes doesn't count everybody else. So I think in those situations where it's not a family in one household, we've been encouraging people to be proactive and to make sure they get themselves counted. So in those cases, and you all can correct me if I'm wrong, it's sort of following what Bao was just saying. If you're not sure if your landlord or whoever you live with counted you, go online, right, and type in your address and fill it out for yourself. Or call the number and fill it out for yourself. So don't wait for somebody to ask you if you have any doubts.
Exactly. Okay, thank
that's
you.
actually really important. I just want to add a little bit to that, Nancy. Thank you for bringing it up. Is when you don't know you're not counted, to just make sure you go and double check or submit that portion for your family. And the reason for that is once an address turns in a survey, a questionnaire, that prompts the U.S. Census Bureau to stop visiting that house. So just like when you send in your email response form, they check you off the list and then they keep going. So it's important that if you think you were missed, always call that number or go to the census website to submit your piece. Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to add to this is that if you live in the garage or if you live in a non-traditional setting within the household and you weren't counted, make sure you're counted. And no one's going to come and investigate that or anything. We just really want to make sure that everybody is counted. And so the non-traditional sites that you might be living at, it's really important to complete that census.
Exactly. That's very true. So we'll move on to the next question is, we've been talking about this. I think a lot of the panelists actually touched on this, but just to reiterate, when will the Census Bureau begin knocking on doors?
The Census Bureau we're currently training folks right now, and we are still hiring as well. So you can go to 2020census.gov/jobs if you're looking to be hired as an enumerator, and we will have enumerators in the field starting August 11th. Just around the corner. So if you want to avoid that, if you want to avoid having folks come to your door, please fill out the census online or by phone. It's a great way to do so. Certainly, if you need someone to help guide you through it, contact one of the trusted voices that you know of in the community, whether it's your local church or temple or mosque, or the county librarian at your local library or your community-based nonprofit. I understand that pretty much everybody is on board with the census, and I'm really happy for that.
All right, next question. What's the last day people have to participate in the census?
Today is the last day you can complete the census, because the sooner you do it, the better. I'm going to joke. Technically, they have some more time, but today is the most important.
You're right. Do it this week. That's what we're saying.
But
okay, I want to see October 31st, but the sooner you complete the census, the better chances that your community is going to be completely counted, which is great in so many ways.
That's right. I definitely echo what Saul has said. Today is the most important day. You're watching this right now. Please go online to 2020census.gov and respond. And right after you do that, please let everyone know on your social media that you just responded and you made a difference for your family and your community.
Awesome, thank you. So next question, can you share more about how the census can be taken for folks with different languages?
I'm sorry, Yesenia, did you mention about how the census can be taken for folks with different languages?
Yes, yeah, can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So when you go to the website, my2020census.gov, depending on what device you're using, if you're on a computer, you should see the different languages in the bottom that you could click to switch the questionnaire into. If the language you're looking for is not part of that, there is an index reference that you can use that's available on the 2020census.gov website. And then lastly, I really encourage everybody to utilize those phone numbers that we talked about. Hopefully, there you go. You can take a quick picture of this. This is going to be a great resource. I know from people we've been helping enumerate in the community, sometimes they just need confirmation or they heard something that they know is not accurate, but they want to talk to someone who speaks in their language that they feel they can trust, just to make sure that they're completing the right census, or that it is a trusted organization. One thing I've learned from being out in the field is the most important thing we're battling at this point with the census is misconceptions, and just lack of knowledge. Some people think that there's a citizenship question on it, which is not the case. Some people think that as I think Marianne was mentioning, that they're going to share that information with your landlord. That is not the case. Nobody sees this information in its individual form. It's all reported in big blocks of information that represents thousands of households at a time, not one single household.
Awesome. And I think we'll share the numbers later on all of the devices that we're live streaming on, just so everybody can have those languages available. So look out for a post on that. And then I'll give it back to Darlene.
Awesome. So the next question, this one's for Bao. Bao, is the census hiring more people to help with the count in Orange County?
Yes, we will be continually hiring. So please go on to 2020census.gov/jobs. So that's where the portal is, and that's where you will be able to apply. You need an email address. You need to be 18 or over, and we'll contact you from there.
And then another quick question just came on that I want to jump on is, what about children born in 2020? Essentially, the answer to that question is they are born on April 1st or before. They do count on your 2020 census. Even if they were in the hospital, if they were born on April 1st and they plan to live in that household, that's where they count. Children born after that day technically weren't here census day, so they're not to be included on your questionnaire. And lastly, just because this applies to me, if you were in the middle of renting or moving between two locations, it's important that you're counted on where you were living on April 1st.
Awesome. Thanks, all, for elaborating. So another question, what role can youth play in ensuring a full count? I think I'll give this one to Marianne and Latino Health Access, since I believe you guys work more with youth.
Yeah, so youth have been doing great in a role to promote census. We have a lot of youth who are promoting it on social media to their friends. They're also a lot of times the navigator for their family if English is not their first language. So a lot of youth have been talking to their parents about how filling out the census and helping them to fill out the census, how to impact them in education at their schools. There'll be more funding, more resources for schools. And so younger kids have been talking to their parents, and the schools have been so great in working with us to promote the census, but also the teenagers and young adults have been great about helping their parents fill out the census. But I think the census data really impacts education, it impacts parks, it impacts resources for the children so they can talk about that. It impacts childcare. And so they've been great educators and spokespersons about the census.
Yeah, I agree with Marianne, and I love this question. I think, growing up in an immigrant household, a lot of times we are the ones that help with language stuff or with technical stuff, or reading through any documents that might seem like government documents. So, but you're not an adult yet, but you're also not a kid, and so I think youth play a really important role in helping their families, one, understand that everyone counts. So making sure no matter what your immigration status is, that everybody should fill out the census, that there's a lot of misinformation out there, that we shouldn't be afraid, and that, a lot of our communities, we have huge undercounts of children and youth. And so if we're not counting everyone, that's less money that comes into our community. So for youth, also finding maybe creative ways to let people know through social media, through TikTok videos, like having access to free food at your school, the free and reduced lunch program, that's because of how many people we count in the census. So if we're not counting the right number of kids, then we're not getting the right number of money for our kids to eat free lunches and breakfast at school. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thanks, Nancy. If we don't have any other questions, if anybody wants to add any other comments before we head off?
Yeah, I just want to add that the youth and youth leadership is so important today. We see young people not as leaders of the future, but as leaders now. So even if you are not yet 18 or you are younger, you can still influence those members of your family. Like Marianne said, in language, oftentimes you're the ones who speak Spanish or Vietnamese or Korean, and you're doing all this interpreting, and you can explain how important this is, not only for your family, but for you directly. Whether it's those services at school to make sure that your teachers have the proper equipment and tools to teach at school, but also for your own future in terms of having Pell Grants for you to go to college. And also, when it comes to redistricting, how demographers redistrict is they count folks of voting age. So you may not be 18 now, but you're going to impact your community when you're counted just a couple years later or 4 years later. So your voice is so important right now.
Thank you, Bao. That's really powerful. We have one more question, actually. Is everyone allowed to participate in the census?
Should we put it together? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
It's your right to be counted. It's your right to be counted.
And I think that's a good way to encourage. I think someone asked, like, what is a good way to encourage your family and friends? And I think it's one thing we've seen is that sometimes folks don't even know what the census is. Especially if you didn't grow up here, you came to this country, it's sort of like, oh, I have to participate. Some people think that you can't participate if you can't vote, but that's not true. If you live here, you count. If you lived here at least half of the year, you count. And so I think there's also misconceptions about who should or shouldn't. So safer than sorry, get counted.
If you're a visiting student, let's say you're from another country and you're a student, you count. If you're visiting here as a worker, and staying here temporarily, you count. So it's very, very important to get an accurate count at this point of time, on April 1st, 2020, because even if you plan to leave the area, we know that there'll be another person 5 years down the line, who will be here too, that when you counted, you ensured that future folks were also counted in the numbers that we have here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Before we go on, I just wanted to acknowledge that we had reserved some time for U.S. Representative Lou Correa, who is hard at work in Washington, D.C. at the moment and had some signal issues. So he's unable to join us, but he wants all of us to know that he is actively, working to support the census, to make sure that his communities get the resources that they need and they're counted. And his message to all of you is to take the census. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. If that's it and everybody's done with their comments, before we wrap up, I did just want to take this time to make sure everybody takes action. I believe a lot of our panelists have already talked about this, but we all have the power to make a difference. So like Saul said, take your census now. So how can we take action right now? There are 3 simple ways. 1, by completing the census online, over the phone, or by mail. 2, by encouraging your family, friends, neighbors, and anyone you know to respond. Like they said, if you live here, you matter, so you should respond to the 2020 census. And then 3, sharing the importance of the census on your social media. This includes Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, WhatsApp, YouTube, etc., and even text. I believe Nancy was talking about this. You can make videos. You can simply just write that you did your census. If you do it, then that encourages your families to do it. They trust the fact that you did it, so that's going to encourage them to do it. So we all have the power to improve our community. So let's get to it. And then I'll take it back to Darlene.
Thank you so much, Yesenia, and thank you to all of our panelists, Marianne, Nancy, Saul, and Bao, for joining us today in conversation around the 2020 census. Big thank you to U.S. Representative Katie Porter for that wonderful message, and a huge thanks to U.S. Representative Lou Correa for his continuous support on the census. And yeah, before we leave you, there are a couple things I wanted to share. So 1, if you'd like to get more involved or want more information, please visit OCCensus.org. It's OCCensus.org, and there you can find like social media, graphics, information on how to respond to the questionnaire. You'll have a link to a disinformation/misinformation phone number and reporting methods. So if you hear something in the community that doesn't sound congruent to what you listened to today at our town hall, then we encourage you to send an email, report it via SMS or online. We also have phone banking efforts going on Tuesday through Friday, and you can still join us. We have one last training tomorrow morning from 10 to 11:30. You can find the link at bit.ly/OCcounts. That's bit.ly/OCcounts. Something awesome that we have at the end of the week is we have CAPOC hosting a Rock the Count Census virtual concert. So it's this Friday, July 31st, and you can find more information on that at CAPOC on Facebook. If you have any questions, anything that you're thinking about, comments, questions, you can send them to 2020census@charitableventuresoc.org. Again, 2020census@charitableventuresoc.org. And yeah, lastly, just a reminder that under the 14th Amendment in the U.S. Constitution, all of us are counted, every single one. So thank you very much for joining us, and don't forget to fill out your census.